Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato. Way more importantly, we're honored to be joined by the Senate Majority Leader in the Senate of New Jersey, is State Senator Teresa Ruiz of the 29th District. Senator, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
We want to talk about education in just a moment because you know education better than most as a former chair of the Senate Education Committee. Let's talk childcare first. Our reimagined childcare branding will come up on the air for people to find out more. But you have initiated a package of legislation, $350 million of affordable, accessible, quality childcare. And I happen to know, because we've known each other a long time, this issue is personal for you as well. Talk about the legislation and why it's such a deep personal commitment for you.
So clearly, when I entered the Senate, I was completely focused on education because I know that it's one of the greatest game changers for anybody's life trajectory, and hyper-focused on early childhood from personal experience, both being in a child care development center, seeing that firsthand, the impact that you have for the family and to the child and their outcomes, and then as a mother in that space. Early days, trying to find close accessibility, recognizing what dry deserts we're in specific areas in the state for infant and toddler care, and always understanding that our child care system is one of the most important variables in the economic success of any state and this country. But one thing shifted. The pandemic hit. And everybody understood immediately what our daycares and our schools and this entire infrastructure, what it meant for the workforce, what it meant for families, and what it meant for the outcomes of the state as far as reopening and getting back to normal spaces. So it elevated a conversation that so many of us have been committed to, but it really fostered this package of bills, understanding what are the gaps in the spaces, making it more affordable, supporting the infrastructure that has long been left far behind, supporting individuals who are working in the space that predominantly are women of color, and just really having a global conversation with the business sector, with more colleagues in the space, in making an investment that I think New Jersey is poised to continue to do.
This is historic. This is the most significant childcare legislation in the history of the state. A couple of the key elements of it that will have the greatest impact on particularly women of color and socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. Please, Senator.
So lifting the child care tax credit, right, so that more families are captured in that space, fostering a program. And a lot of this, even though initiated through legislation, ended up either being language in the budget and or coming out from different programming. So for instance, the Economic Development Authority of the state, making sure that they're making this investment for current or future individuals who are going to go into this space, supporting them for facility infrastructure and its expansion. And then just talking about how do we support and create a pipeline for individuals to come into working, because retention is critical. We see that now in the early childhood space, and we also see it in our education spaces. How do we foster the next generation of practitioners in this space?
Senator, again, because you're before you came to the Senate, and you are Deputy Chief of Staff in Essex County to the Essex County Executive, you're a professional in the field of childcare. You were on the front lines. I believe it may have been one of your first jobs. Is that a fair assessment?
I wouldn't necessarily call myself a professional. I never had a certificate in the state of New Jersey. I did have a wonderful opportunity to teach at the North Ward Child Development Center, and this was pre-Abbott. And so what I recognized firsthand there was that I was blessed to be with 4-year-olds, that if in fact I could have taught them calculus and early algebra and Mandarin, they would have absorbed that. So what I clearly understood during my time frame of teaching that 1 year was that anyone who commits himself to teach should be rewarded and applauded on a consistent basis. It is the most important profession that anyone can commit themselves to, and that children in those ages can truly absorb anything that you put before them. And that the earlier we get children in high quality spaces, the returns on those investments are extraordinary, and the cost savings for those school systems and for the families are great. And when you think about our working families and you think about the calendar that we have still in this country, people should sit back and say, how can we really reinvent what we're doing? Having a calendar cycle that was set for an agrarian society just doesn't fundamentally make any sense. We have all these struggles, summertime, what do we do with our children? If you're a family that's resourced, there are opportunities that you can explore. But if you're a family that's struggling, we know what happens during the summer, and that's learning loss during those spaces of when we can't support and elevate our children's learning time.
So to the senator's point, actually, we'll have a separate conversation with Senator Ruiz, as I said, who knows more about education than most people as the former chair of the Senate Education Committee. She just mentioned learning loss. I don't want to, because this child care issue is too in-depth, so I'm going to stay with this a little bit longer. We had, and I know you know Cecilia Zalkine very well, who is stepping down as the CEO of Advocates for Children of New Jersey after 38 years there. And she was talking to us in a recent segment, Senator, where she said, look, let's face it, child care workers are not nearly paid enough, and we need more government subsidies. Let's be clear. Where does that piece fit in, paying more for child care workers, and where does that money come from?
So we've talked about this. I think this is somewhere where a space where government can lean into. We have to approach this better from a common sense approach. If we know that the return on the investment in early childhood for every dollar you put in can reap you a benefit of $13, why wouldn't we make these investments in the women who are working in these spaces? You have so many women who commit themselves to these classrooms who perhaps themselves can't afford to send their children to the space that they're actually working in. And so, we've explored some tax opportunities there that Senator Vitale has instituted in a bill. I think that this is an exceptional conversation that we should have and continue to have during the budget process, because I think this is a space where government can lean into and make that investment. That's where the money should come from, because the return is extraordinary.
Last question, Senator. You mentioned Senator Joe Vitale, the chair of the Senate Health Committee, who's an advocate, who's worked shoulder to shoulder with you. Real quick, a few seconds left. To what degree do you find your male colleagues, by and large, both sides of the aisle, supportive of the initiatives that you're proposing? A few seconds, please.
So interesting that pre-pandemic, it was few and far between who leaned in. We know that Senator Vitale has two beautiful young children, so it became something that was very real for him. Right. And so those experiences lean into policy. During the pandemic, everyone was talking about what can we do? How are we going to support the infrastructure system? Because it became more than just a babysitting conversation that people had couched it for far too long. It became, my business cannot open if Maria cannot come to work. She is making a decision whether to stay at home with her child or to actually show up for work.
Yeah, economic impact is huge as it relates to childcare. State Senator Teresa Ruiz, who is in fact the majority leader of the Senate from the great city of Newark Brick City. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. Kane University, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the Northward Center, PSE&G, Newark Board of Education, and by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ, and by CIANJ and Commerce Magazine.
I'm very grateful that I'm still here.
That's me and my donor when we went to celebrate our first anniversary.
With a new kidney, I have strength.
They gave me a new lease on life.
I'm still going everywhere and exploring new places.
Nobody thought I was going to be here. Nobody.
And I look forward to getting older with my wife. That's possible now.
We're transforming lives through innovative kidney treatments, living donor programs, and world-renowned care at 2 of New Jersey's premier hospitals.
They gave me my normal life back. It's a blessing.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.